All right, so chapter 10, we are doing a weird thing where we circle back. Because man, 2 unique days in 1 week is really weird. We are definitely in the new year. Sochi is knocking out its resolutions. We've got Crunch coming in, and we've got the new Diamond thing, which is amazing, but both of them are goofing up my schedule. So we're making up for it with chapter 10 today in supplementation. So you are going to want to circle back, guys, if you've been working your way through the book, similar to the nutrition chapter. So we're gonna go ahead and start off with, I think, a really good perspective on supplements. Like, we'll talk about a little bit about like just introducing this, and then I'll sort of give you my take on things and show you the consistencies that I find and stuff. So, our objectives today, stuff we want to get through, we want to define what supplementation is. It's very well named. It is meant to be supplemental. It is never meant to replace anything. And we'll talk about the dietary needs for taking supplements. Summarize which supplements are best for optimal health and body composition, or at least the ones that claim they are. And then we'll explain the role of supplementation within the personal training industry. Sorry, just texting somebody who is trying to get in but having trouble. Let's try that instead. So the role within our sort of profession. So, what the heck is a dietary supplement? Well, like I said, I will say, supplements, very well named, right? Like, it is not food. It is not always just direct enhancement to things. It is literally meant to be supplemental, not designed to replace anything. If you're thinking of going on a diet where you eat nothing but very low calorie foods, and you're worried about not getting your vitamins and minerals, and you decide to take a vitamin supplement, that is not how that works. Um, Not that it won't have any effect, it could possibly have some benefits, but it certainly isn't the same as you're not replacing anything. You are simply sort of hoping to enhance the effect. So, sort of by definition here, we're going to say, oh, I got to set this up. Shoot, I should have done that. Hold on. A dietary supplement. Shoot, sorry, guys. By definition, we're going to say it is a product designed to supplement an already healthy diet, right? And it is not intended to replace any normal nutrition. So it could be a vitamin or a mineral, it could be an herb or a botanical, it might be an amino acid powder, it could be a substance that is, designed to actually give you an ergogenic benefit, meaning like, maybe you're trying to maybe you're trying to experience performance enhancement, right? Some type of metabolite or something like that that's going to help. And that's great. But the one thing about supplements that we all have to remember is that they are not FDA approved, which is really interesting. So supplements are not FDA approved. Now, that doesn't mean that they are not allowed to go on the shelves. Like, you'll always hear this term, like, around supplements. You'll hear like, oh, they're not FDA approved, right? That might make it sound like, well, then it's probably dangerous, right? Like, shouldn't I stay away from anything that isn't like, safe? Here's the thing. It's not that supplements are not FDA approved. They are approved in the sense that they are a product allowed to be sold in the US on a shelf, that you can consume. Like, in that sense, they're 100% FDA approved. But what we mean by that, when we say that a supplement is not FDA approved, what we actually mean is the statements about the benefits of the supplements are not FDA approved. So what we mean is not so much that like they are dangerous, right? But I could, package up a little bit of like, I don't know, let's say like let's say I take like some barley or something, right? Something that's like very fibrous for the most part, right? It's got a big outer shell that's mostly fiber, right? And then if I took that and I ground it up in like a mortar and pestle, added it to, like a pill casing and stuff, and I sold it as like fiber pills. And I'm like, hey, these are Brad's fiber pills. They have a litany of benefits. They're going to help keep you regular. They can help lower your cholesterol because that's what fiber does. It can reduce your risk of cancer, right? Everything that I said is actually somewhat related to anything that has fiber in it, right? Like that's what fiber's role is in the body. It can help keep you regular, by helping pull things out of the body. It can reduce your risk of cancer by actually, again, kind of the same thing about like, right, it kind of pulls everything out of the body, so it makes sure that like you're not just leaving random discarded waste in your GI tract. It can reduce your cholesterol and risk of heart disease. That one's kind of surprising, but basically the way fiber does that, we talked about it a little bit the other day, but fiber basically gives your gut bacteria something to eat. And then your gut bacteria poops out these little fatty acid chains. And those fatty acid chains leak into your bloodstream, and they're incredibly, incredibly good for you, reducing your risk of heart disease. So these are all like true enough things, right? Like that is all related. So as long as like the FDA tests my little, cellulose tablets to make sure that the cellulose is high quality and not going to hurt anybody and spoil, and then they test the barley, powder that I kind of grind it up. They're going to test that to make sure that like if I give that to someone, it's not going to make them actively sick. Cool. Great. Now, are they going to test whether or not it reduces your risk of cancer, heart disease, and helps keep you regular or anything like that? No, that is not what they are at all looking for. So the FDA's job is not to test whether or not a supplement does what it says it does. The FDA's job is to test whether or not a supplement is going to actively hurt the population that could potentially buy it. So that's the thing that like a lot of people don't understand. So when they see that on a supplement label, right? And it says not approved by the FDA. It isn't that, again, it isn't that it is not like safe. What they mean is it is not proven to do anything. Right. And that's what we mean when we say like, the FDA does not approve these statements, right? And that way, like, the burden of proof really is on the supplement company itself, because unfortunately, we don't have a government agency that is in charge, of making sure supplements do what they're supposed to do, right? Cleanse powders and vitamins and juices and all these like different things that like claim all of this health stuff. Unfortunately, we don't have an agency to take care of that. So a lot of times those companies will hire a third party to do that testing for them. Like the way a lot of supplements work is like somebody has an idea for something that they want to make people healthier, and so they have this idea, and then they sort of release this product, and then that product gets out into the world, and people are like, oh, well, does it actually work? And they're like, well, we got to have some version of like, we got the burden of proof on our shoulders here. We got to have some version of proving that our supplement does a thing. They don't have a government agency to do that, and so they'll oftentimes like hire a third party. At least that's the very innocent sort of ideal version of it, right? How I described it. A lot of times, like, and unfortunately, this is just how it is because companies are out there and they are trying to make money. And the supplement industry is one of the best money making industries, especially here in the US. They will hire a third party, or maybe they'll even make a third party. in their own company, and they'll have it off to the side. It's still under the same sort of umbrella company, and then they'll say it's a third party when in fact it's still kind of the first party. And they'll test and be like, yeah, of course it works. In fact, it works better than we ever thought it could, right? And it's like, well, when it comes down to like scientifically testing if something actually works or not, like it's hard to trust somebody who is trying to make money by selling a thing, you know? And I like to think of myself as the farthest away from any conspiracy as I can possibly. This is actually very true of me, guys. I hate conspiracy theories. Like anytime like someone's like, "Did you hear about like lizards doing?" I'm like, "Nope, get out of here. I'm not. We don't even have to continue this." Like I really do not like. I do actually not think that like a lot of these companies are necessarily actively evil in the supplement industry. You'll hear that a lot of times from some trainers. They're like, they're putting that out there because they want you to be dependent and this and that. I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think they are actively evil. However, I do think if cash is king, and that's the one thing that they are designed to do, right? They are going to do whatever they can to sell their product, right? Um, so I don't think it's necessarily a conspiracy, but I do think it is sort of human nature. Um, so that's sort of my take on supplements before we get going here. I got a really good video to kind of start us off with and talk a little bit about this. Just out of curiosity, who's my second iPhone here? Who just got here? Just because I can't see the name. Luis, is that you?
Yeah, it's me.
Hey, okay. Just checking. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's get a little supplementation talk going here. All right. That's not what I wanted. Oh shoot, isn't that Ted? Is it Vox? Hold on. I'm forgetting who made that video. Where the heck is this video that I am talking about here? Well, there's the role of vitamins. I was going to show that one later, but I can show that now, and then I will find the video that I am talking about. Oop. All right, here we go. All right, so we're gonna start off with vitamins. We're jumping forward just a little bit, and then we'll circle back. But this isn't quite the one I'm looking for here. Oh, I think it's a picture fit video. That's right. Okay. Share me sound. Put me away and here. Oh gosh. Here we go.
A, C, E, D, B, K. No, this isn't some random out-of-order alphabet. These are vitamins. And just like letters build words, they're the building blocks that keep the body running. Vitamins are organic compounds we need to ingest in small amounts to keep functioning. They're the body's builders, defenders, and maintenance workers, helping it to build muscle and bone, make use of nutrients, capture and use energy, and heal wounds. If you need convincing about vitamin value, just consider the plight of olden-day sailors who had no access to vitamin-rich fresh produce. They got scurvy, but vitamin C, abundant in fruits and vegetables, was the simple antidote to this disease. While bacteria, fungi, and plants produce their own vitamins, our bodies can't, so we have to get them from other sources. So how does the body get vitamins from out there into here? That's dependent on the form these compounds take. Vitamins come in two types, lipid-soluble and water-soluble, and the difference between them determines how the body transports and stores vitamins and gets rid of the excess. The water solubles are vitamin C and B complex vitamins that are made up of 8 different types that each do something unique. These are dissolved in the watery parts of fruits, vegetables, and grains, meaning their passage through the body is relatively straightforward. Once inside the system, these foods are digested, and the vitamins within them are taken up directly by the bloodstream. Because blood plasma is water-based, water-soluble vitamins C and B have their transport cut out for them and can move around freely within the body. For lipid-soluble vitamins, dissolved in fat and found in foods like dairy, butter, and oils, this trip into the blood is a little more adventurous. These vitamins make it through the stomach and the intestine, where an acidic substance called bile flows in from the liver, breaking up the fat and preparing it for absorption through the intestinal wall. Because fat-soluble vitamins can't make use of the blood's watery nature, they need something else to move them around. And that comes from proteins that attach to the vitamins and act like couriers, transporting fat solubles into the blood and around the body. So this difference between water or fat-soluble vitamins determines how they get into the blood, but also how they're stored or ejected from the body. The system's ability to circulate water-soluble vitamins in the bloodstream so easily means that most of them can be passed out equally easily via the kidneys. Because of that, most water-soluble vitamins need to be replenished on a daily basis through the food we eat. But fat-soluble vitamins have staying power because they can be packed into the liver and in fat cells. The body treats these parts like a pantry, storing the vitamins there and rationing them out when needed, meaning we shouldn't overload on this type of vitamin because the body is generally well stocked. Once we've figured the logistics of transport and storage, the vitamins are left to do the work they came here to do in the first place. Some, like many of the B-complex vitamins, make up coenzymes, whose job it is to help enzymes release the energy from food. Other B vitamins then help the body to use that energy. From vitamin C, you get the ability to fight infection and make collagen, a kind of tissue that forms bones and teeth and heals wounds. Vitamin A helps make white blood cells, key in the body's defense, helps shape bones, and improves vision by keeping the cells of the eye in check. Vitamin D gathers calcium and phosphorus so we can make bones, and vitamin E works as an antioxidant, getting rid of elements in the body that can damage cells. Finally, from vitamin K, we score the ability to clot blood, since it helps make the proteins that do this job. Without this vitamin variety, humans face deficiencies that cause a range of problems, like fatigue, nerve damage, heart disorders, or diseases like rickets and scurvy. On the other hand, too much of any vitamin can cause toxicity in the body. So there goes the myth that loading yourself with supplements is a great idea. In reality, it's all about getting the balance right and hitting that vitamin jackpot.
Okay, so that's kind of talking about like what actual vitamins are. There's a big difference between obviously like what the biological entity a vitamin is and a vitamin supplement, right? Vitamin supplements are sort of where they started. You know, we found that like individuals weren't necessarily getting as many vitamins as they were supposed to, which makes sense. You look at like the typical average American diet from, you know, the early 1900s. Let's see, typical American diet, early 1900s. You know, it's all gonna be just like meats and stews. You know, like that was like pretty common back in the day. That's actually not bad. There's a little, is that a little bit of salad in there? That's impressive. You know, but yeah, it was like there weren't necessarily always like a lot of vitamins in things. I actually just found somebody, a client of mine sent me a diet the other day. It was like a weight loss plan. Plan from the 1950s. What was it? It was like, oh, I wish I could. It was a Google image, so I'm wondering if I can find it. But um, is this what it was like a really extreme weight loss plan? No, see, that's like a lot of calories. It was like it was so bad. But it was like how to lose, you know, you're supposed to lose a ton of weight, and it was like you're having like 4 cups of coffee a day and then like 1 hard-boiled egg. It was not the military diet, although I have seen that as well. Um, no, it was like, yeah, you have like a single hard-boiled egg and then like, juice and then just like oh, and it was like it had like a glass of wine at the end of the night. Like it was pretty bad. And it was probably like totaling it all up, I'd say it was like probably 600 calories. But somebody just sent me that the other day and it's crazy some of the things you'll find. But it was like also, when you're on something like that, a lot of people think it's like, oh, I'll just take a vitamin supplement and that'll kind of like take up for things. And that's what's interesting about vitamin supplements, guys. Like their history is that, they were invented as a means of being like, well, I mean, clearly we need to have all these vitamins and minerals in our diet. Um, why don't we just, take them in pill? If we can separate them, which we can, and we can shove them into a pill, why don't we just do that? And that's going to be, then we can just worry about calories and we can get all our vitamins and minerals from somewhere else. That was the plan, like, and it was a lot of militaries like had that plan. They were like, this will be great. But unfortunately, like it just doesn't quite interact that way. There's something really interesting about like, the fact that vitamins have to be sort of absorbed through food. And you look at the video we just watched, I mean, obviously, like there's a lot more water content in food than you sort of give it credit for. And so like water is being consumed with that food, goes into your stomach acid, it breaks all of it down into its individual components, and then there's still all of that water kind of surrounding those vitamins. And so that water passes into your small intestine, and those B vitamins are going to get absorbed mostly through like the water there. And so they don't really get absorbed much through the small intestine because your small intestine isn't really in charge of absorbing a lot of water, but your large intestine is. So now you got to look at that like supplement. You have to look at that pill and consider, okay, so it has to survive my stomach acid long enough to like get there, but short enough to actually like break down. Then it has to sort of like mix with all of that water, and then it has to survive not getting absorbed or filtered in the small intestine all the way through the GI tract until about the last, I'd say sixth of the GI tract, and then finally at the large intestine, that's where those vitamins, that the B vitamins and vitamin C can really kind of get like into the bloodstream as that water sort of gets like pulled out of all that wet soupy material that used to be food, right? But if you consider like taking a pill by itself, right, that's going to pass very, very quickly through that entire GI tract. It might not have time to dissolve and actually break apart. It might not have time to like mix with the water. There's a lot of things that can kind of go wrong. And so that's kind of what you see when you go to the bathroom. If you've ever like taken a vitamin supplement and you've gone pee later and it looks like you are, peeing highlighter fluid, that's what you're seeing. You are seeing vitamin B2, that's riboflavin. That's kind of what it looks like. And so it comes out, kind of looking exactly the way it did, right? Like really not absorbed and filtered. And that's actually mostly due to the fact that like, if you have too much of a water soluble vitamin, it is easy for your body to sort of like get rid of that. But it's one of the reasons why if you look at a vitamin, let's take a look here. We'll just pick one randomly from the list here. Sorry, not vitamin, so it's a multivitamin. So we'll take a look at whatever this one is. I don't know what brand this is. But you take a look here and we look, let's see, vitamin riboflavin, right? So that's actually only 88% of your daily recommended in one pill. That's actually not crazy compared to some of the other ones. I imagine they're trying to sort of avoid the Hulk P. Oh, that's an interesting question. So we had an interesting question here. Why, when drinking alcohol, do you tend to have like very clear pee? Yeah, no, that is not actually a very weird thing. That is your body pulling extra water into like your kidneys in order to sort of filter that alcohol. So the first place that anything goes, right, when stuff is absorbed by your GI tract, First place it goes is your liver, and your liver's job is to like detoxify things, right? Basically, your liver is like an enzyme factory, and enzymes are like how we can sort of combat disease and things like that. It's why, which makes sense, right? Like if you're gonna, be eating food which is gonna have bacteria all over it, by the way, and viruses and even parasites here and there. That stuff is all over our food all the time. It's all over your face right now. Don't think too much about it. Don't get freaked out. It's been like this your whole life. But like what happens is like, the first part of your immune system that sort of combats that is the stomach acid. That's actually, while it is very important for digestion, it's part of your immunity. You drop an acid, you drop a virus into a vat of acid, and it gets dissolved, and now it can't hurt you anymore. But the first place it goes once it is being absorbed through the small intestine is through your liver. And so your liver is going to find any leftover viruses, bacteria, or anything like that, and just beat it down with a bunch of enzymes. There's so many enzymes there that it basically just makes it unlivable, and destroys most of that. So the same thing is true of alcohol. I'm not distracted, it's just a long explanation. So alcohol is also going to, get absorbed, right? And it's going to go through your liver. This is one of the reasons why excessive alcohol consumption causes liver damage and liver failure, what we call cirrhosis, right? And so it goes to the liver, and your liver is basically going to take these big long alcohol chains, and it is going to break them down and convert them into ketone bodies, actually, weirdly enough, mostly acetone, which again is the same thing as nail polish remover. Your liver does make a lot of that. But then it will break any of the rest of it down into sugar. Now, any of that the byproduct of that is weirdly somewhat, it takes a lot of water to do it, but then there is a lot of water left over afterwards. So all of that water has sort of been used. We can consider that like metabolic water, and then that water is going to basically go straight into your kidneys, and then you're going to pee that out, which is one of the reasons why alcohol dehydrates you so much, is because like it is literally using water to sort of process that and detoxify it and stuff. And so you end up with like very hydrated looking urine, which is one of the like ways that we sort of fool ourselves, because again, we want our urine not necessarily to be super clear, but to be like sort of like a really weak lemonade, is what I've been trained to say for years now, which is always so weird, and you'll never see lemonade the same way ever again. But yeah, that's sort of why, which is really interesting. So it makes you seem like you're more hydrated, but when in fact your body is basically pulling in that water to sort of process that alcohol, and it dehydrates you overall. There's sort of a difference. One thing NASM kind of glosses over when they talk about the idea of hydration, if you get more in depth into it, there's sort of two places water exists in your body. You've got intracellular fluid and you've got extracellular fluid. So you've got water inside your cells and you got water outside your cells, right? Extracellular fluid is outside, intracellular fluid is inside. Alcohol pulls water from inside your cells in order to sort of like process it, giving you lots of extracellular fluid. This is also why you might look a little puffy after like a lot of alcohol consumption as well. But that's a good question, because we never talk about alcohol, and it's a big part of nutrition in this version of the world. There we go. So we can see like this riboflavin, and this actually might not be the most like brightly yellow colored urine supplement out there. But you can see, like, look at how they'll load up in a lot of supplements. I mean, this one's actually not really all that extreme. I'm kind of impressed. But you see here, 200% of the daily recommended, right? 166%, 133%. Now, vitamins in really, really high levels can actually cause toxicity. Too much B vitamins, for instance, can actually cause numbness or tingling in your fingertips. They can sort of interact with your nervous system and sort of fool it into sort of activating when it's not supposed to. you will see like too much vitamin C can cause things like canker sores. Too much vitamin D can actually cause like bone spurs and things like that. So, it is possible to sort of get too many vitamins. But if that's true, then why would supplement companies, pack full? I mean, that one's not a very extreme example, but let's take a look at another one here. Can't open that one. That's not too bad either. There we go. 310%, but even that's not very extreme. There we go. There's your classic. So we're seeing like, 400% here of vitamin B12, right? 150%. We're seeing like, pretty large numbers here for some of these supplements. And the reason why is because they're B vitamins. They're water soluble. If you get too much of, good Lord, nobody's gonna be able to read that. If you get too much of them, they're water soluble. Your body, for the most part, is just gonna pee them out. And it's probably not going to cause too much damage. But fat soluble vitamins, you got to kind of be careful with a little bit. It's pretty rare to see fat soluble vitamins where they will fire up those percentages like crazy, or at least rarer. So that is, when we talk about like why we take certain supplements, it is in order to sort of, fill in the gaps in our essential nutrients. Maybe we don't have a diet that's rich enough in supplements. But again, they can cause toxicity in really high levels, so we do got to be a little bit careful there. When we talk about like supplementation guidelines and everything like that, oh, no problem, Gina. Good to have you. Let's take a look at like, how to sort of understand these labels and look at this here, right? So the FDA does enforce the guidelines for dietary supplements in terms of being safe. That's the FDA's job, right? If you ever want to understand more about the FDA, by the way, it is not a nutrition book. It is not about, getting better at understanding nutrition or anything. But if you want a really good history book, you guys can check out, it's called The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. He's the same guy who wrote There Will Be Blood, which I think the book is called Oil, but if you liked that movie. Fair warning, this is not a pleasant book. It is not a fun read. In fact, it is so gross that it is sort of what led to the invention of the FDA. And it's about the meatpacking industry in Chicago. And basically, FDR read this book and he was like, oh, my Lord, is that what people are eating? That is so gross. We should have a government agency that makes sure that this stuff doesn't make people sick. Pretty cool story. Anybody read that, by the way? Anybody in here read The Jungle? It's part of my economics class, actually, when I had to read it. Never ever thought that I would be talking about economics to other people someday. But here we are. But yeah, it is a really nasty book, but pretty fascinating read. So the FDA does look at supplements, but they do not test whether or not anything that those supplements say are true. That's not their job. They also do set similar, working with the CDC and things like that. They do also work very similarly with, understanding what our guidelines are when it comes. What our guidelines are when it comes to vitamins and minerals, right? So when I say something is, 200% the daily recommended, how did we come up with that daily recommended, right? Well, that wasn't so much the FDA, that was more like the CDC and everything working together. But yes, we do sort of have like general standards for things in terms of like what we should consume. Similar to, if you guys remember, for those of you who were at Sochi on Tuesday, we talked about the AMDRs of proteins, fats, and carbs, the acceptable macronutrient distribution ranges, right? That 45 to 65% of carbohydrates, that's what's recommended based on a standard American diet. Go to another country, I'm sure you would see ever so slightly different numbers, probably somewhat similar because, again, I hope that all this information is backed in science, right? But, for the most part, like that is our version of sort of the standards, right? So while the FDA does not approve whether or not the supplement works or says it does what it says it does, they are making sure that it is at least safe. So when you're reading supplements, right, we're going to see a couple different terms here. One of those is going to be the recommended daily values and the tolerable upper intake levels. This is basically showing you, if you consistently get, below this number, there could be some adverse health effects. And if you consistently get above this number, there could be some other adverse health effects. So too much vitamin D in your blood can actually cause you to excrete calcium. Vitamin D is in charge of like helping your body use calcium in order to create like bone tissue and things like that. But too much vitamin D in your blood can actually cause that to calcify in your blood. And so weirdly enough, that can cause bone spurs in random parts of the body. And it can actually, hold on. Cause you to excrete calcium, which is not so good. And that can cause muscle cramping and things like that because calcium is how we contract our muscles. Too much calcium in your blood, similarly, can cause kind of the same problems there. Too much sodium can actually cause not only like obviously water retention. I'm sure we've all experienced that after a very heavy salty meal, but that can actually cause you to excrete calcium. So again, it can actually lower your bone density. So even just like one mineral, looking at calcium alone, we can see like, certain elements are going to have impacts on those things. Now, I will say, when it comes to your B complex, so vitamins B1 through 12, right? Your B complex and vitamin C, for the most part, because these are water soluble, your upper intake levels are pretty drastic. I mean, we really only need about 90 milligrams of vitamin C per day, but you can have up to 2,000 without risking any problems. There are problems with having too much vitamin C, but, it's pretty rare. So our recommended daily values are going to be how much we generally tell people to get, right? The tolerable upper intake level is the amount that you can get on average before we start to see adverse health effects. Now, if you take a super, like let's say you take like a wellness shot or something like that, right? Something sold at a store. You take a wellness shot, and that shot is, going to be just packed full of vitamin C and things like that. Is that going to hurt you? Because obviously you're getting way more than you're supposed to. No, you're doing it one time. Like, we do have to look at these things over a very long average, kind of like the guy at Crunch was talking about the other day. He was talking about like, we don't want to weigh ourselves too consistently because like, it can kind of like mess with our heads in terms of like seeing the numbers go up and down. I somewhat disagree with that. If you want to weigh yourself consistently and you can avoid that like mental damage, not that we're playing D&D or anything, but like if you can avoid, the mental sort of like itchiness in the back of your brain saying, oh, I gained a half a pound, right? If you can avoid those feelings and just look at it on like a weekly average and like take all those numbers, average them out, and like you only pay attention to what the average is every Sunday or something like that, or every other week, right? I think that's actually a really good way to sort of look at those things, because even, if you are only testing every 2 weeks, you might get unlucky on like a day where you are retaining a little bit of water, and that can kind of slow your results down. And then the next day it would have been fine, but you're not testing the next day. Definitely depends on the client, by the way. When I worked at Biggest Loser, for instance, we had every scale in that building on lockdown. People couldn't get to it because we only wanted people to like test their weight once per week, at the very most, And we would always give people the option to not even look at it. I had a lot of clients where what I would ask them is like, do you want to know the numbers or would you rather know the change? Because that's what they mostly cared about anyways. And they're like, I don't care what the weight is. I just want to know, like, did it change this week and this week? And so I give them like their change numbers. So similarly, right, we got to kind of look at the average here. if you get way more phosphorus than you're supposed to at any given time, is that going to make you toxic and sick? No. Like, if you average it out consistently, though, it will have certain effects. So here is a quick little video that's going to kind of break down some of the supplements. This is the one I was looking for a minute ago, but it's a picture fit video. Oh no. So now it's all in the wrong. Is it this one? I think it is this one. Okay.
Hey, I don't think you know this. Now you do.
It's so annoying. The search results are in a different order than when I looked them up. I do think it's this one. Okay. Oop.
If you're thinking about buying supplements to take your gains to the next level, then you should watch this whole video first, because supplements might not be as magical as we might think. I totally get how it can be very enticing to start taking fitness supplements. It might even feel like all your friends, influencers, and even ads all across social media are telling you that supplements can be an absolute game changer for your gains. And to be honest, I personally think supplements can be great too if you actually positively need them. And that's the real kicker. Do you know exactly what supplements can genuinely do for you outside of what some fitness influencers said about their new super awesome amino supplement that will get you gains you can never imagine? My new supplement, which is on sale for only $89.99 by the way, per month, is gonna unlock all your muscular muscles so you can look just like me. Oh, and don't worry about these syringes, it's just my dog's flea medication. He's a big dog. By the way, another big topic worth discussing is this clear conflict of interest with influencers blindly endorsing all these random supplements. It's why my Photoshop booty is not a fan of pushing magical Photoshop supplements to all of you wonderful folks watching. But that's a discussion for another day. My goal with this video is to help you effectively navigate through the wild world of fitness supplements, and we'll do that by breaking things down into 4 sections. In the end, you'll see that it's actually quite simple. Let's get started with the first section, which I call the need. Just as it sounds, we have to understand how much we truly, physiologically need any specific supplement. The point of supplements is just that, to supplement things that cannot be reasonably acquired with nutrition alone. But if you're pretty healthy and have decent access to a variety of foods, then there's really only a handful of circumstances and situations where supplements are truly needed. Circumstances like food restrictions due to health, religious, and/or ethical reasons, or having goals like weight loss that limit calorie and nutrient intake, and circumstances where taking supplements is clearly more practical. For example, if you need caffeine before the gym, it's probably more practical to drink a half cup of water mixed with a caffeine pre-workout supplement versus trying to quickly gulp down 3 full cups of black coffee. So yes, sometimes supplements are needed, but only if you fit the proper circumstances. But what many people don't realize is that even with these circumstances, you still don't need the far majority of these supplements. And this is where we get into our next section called the useless. I don't know the exact figure, but if I had to guess, I'd say that roughly 99.91% of fitness supplements are essentially what rhymes with full shit. Oh, my bad. Well, still technically correct. And one big reason is that dietary supplements, especially in the United States, are not completely but extremely unregulated. Supplement companies can make virtually any claim about their products without any solid scientific evidence. And sometimes when they do have evidence, it comes from a lab directly funded by the company themselves. That's how we end up with a bunch of supplements like testosterone, HMB, CLA, testosterone boosters, just to name a few, that become very popular but then quickly fades away once actual data comes in showing a lack of fitness benefits. They are effectively useless. Where things get a bit trickier is supplementing ingredients that are useful, but companies try to trick you into believing that having more of them beyond what you need can provide even greater benefits. This happens a lot with supplementing amino acids, which are important compounds found in protein. Take the amino acid glutamine, for example, which when supplemented supposedly can further improve muscle and recovery. Looking at the data though, like in a 2018 meta-analysis, more glutamine beyond our needs simply provide little to no benefit. But perhaps the most persistent purveyor of this point is supplementing branched-chain amino acids, or BCAAs. BCAAs are super popular largely because supplementing them can in fact lead to more muscle growth, as long as you don't compare it to the much more superior supplements of whole proteins. Remember, amino acids come from protein, and BCAAs are only a portion of the numerous essential amino acids we need, all of which are found in protein supplements like soy and whey protein. And what we see is that supplementing BCAAs along with all other essential amino acids lead to greater muscle gains than supplementing BCAAs alone. Essentially, BCAAs become redundant, aka useless, if you already get enough overall protein. And if you need more protein, then supplementing protein rather than specific amino acids is a better option. And on that note, let's now talk about supplements that can actually be useful, but don't get too hyped just yet. Let's break things down in our next section called the expectation. If you were to ask me what I think are the bona fide, effective, legal fitness supplements, then there's really only 3 that I feel somewhat confident mentioning, and they are protein, caffeine, and creatine. But even for these 3 supposedly great supplements, people's expectations of their impact are probably too high, and they also require their own set of context. Now, I'll keep things short for this video, but if you want more in-depth information, feel free to check out my other videos on each specific supplement. But the gist of it is that each of these good supplements require meeting certain conditions to see meaningful benefits. Protein, which I unabashedly love, is undoubtedly important for muscle and strength, but it's only useful as a supplement if you are indeed not getting enough protein from your nutrition. What we're starting to realize, though, is that our protein needs might not be as high as we used to believe. 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day, or 1 gram per pound, has been a very popular recommendation for many years. But in reality, there's only a handful of studies showing this having a very small benefit and limited to more advanced lifters or significant calorie deficits. The overall research shows that a more reasonable protein ceiling is closer to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram body weight, or 0.7 grams per pound. And even then, the differences in gains between 1.6 grams and 1.3 or even 1.1 grams isn't all that much. What's more important is training effectively to elicit decent gains in the first place. So unless you feel that squeezing every 1/10 of a millimeter of growth is important, then you're likely fine with getting a bit less than 1.6 grams. But if you really want to hit that number, then sure, protein supplements can help if you need it. As for caffeine, again, we have to think about expectations. For lifting weights, caffeine might help you lift 11 or 12 reps instead of 10, which in fairness is not bad if you're an advanced lifter, but if you're kinda new to lifting, 1 or 2 more reps is still good, but not exactly mind-blowing, especially since you're progressing so quickly anyway with or without caffeine. Now, caffeine does shine a bit more with aerobic performance, so if you're doing a lot of cardio, then supplementing caffeine might be useful.
I work Monday to Friday and I decided to switch out my lunch for Huel. This saves me a ton of time because it only...
And then there's
Every time I do this PowerPoint, my ads are nothing but supplements for the next 2 weeks.
creatine. Creatine is one of those rare substances that people do struggle to get from their diet, and supplementing it can be beneficial for both health and fitness. For fitness specifically, it has shown to notably improve performance and strength with modest improvements in muscle growth. On the other hand, there's also conflicting data showing creatine providing virtually no benefit, and that's partly because about 20 to 30% of people naturally do not respond to creatine intake whatsoever, resulting in wildly different effects from one person to the next. And this point is essentially the biggest crux of supplements in general. We see this wide range of effects happen all the time in all types of supplement research, but we never really know that because we only look at the results in terms of averages. And that's why it's important to manage our expectations of all supplements. No one can outright say that any single supplement can be very effective specifically for you because we simply do not know how you will respond to them. With that in mind, we now jump into our final section called the individual, or you. I know some of you are probably thinking, oh, here's the preachy part where Mr. Picture Fat tells us how we are all different and special and how we should think for ourselves when buying supplements, and you'll be 100% correct. No one, including myself, can tell you what supplements to buy except you. That said, I would still say that before you do make any decisions, it's good to ask yourself, am I truly at the point where I should even be thinking about supplements? The fact is, there are a lot of bigger factors to address before supplements. Factors like thoroughly evaluating and improving your nutrition wherever you can, evaluating your training program to make sure it suits your goals, reflecting on your training itself to make sure you're putting in enough effort, ensuring that you're getting enough sleep and rest for proper recovery, and this is a big one, setting realistic expectations and goals. Sorry to say, 6-minute abs aren't gonna happen no matter how much a YouTuber tells you. They're probably trying to sell you ab supplements. Now, once you do address these bigger factors first, then you can finally ask yourself, are the benefits that supplements might provide really worth it to me? With now knowing about the actual physiological need for supplements, the uselessness of the majority of supplements, and needing tempered expectations of the good supplements, hopefully you come to a more effective and satisfying answer. And if you're unsure about a specific supplement, see if you can do a bit of research on the main ingredient. You can also look around my videos to see if I covered it before. But again, I can't personally tell you what to take. Except if someone tries to sell you KO supplements, then you have to call your local authorities, because that is absolutely criminal. If you enjoyed this video...
All right, so I like that approach. I think that's a very good example of sort of how we should view these things. Because here's the thing. The FDA is going to make sure that they are not going to hurt you, right? Like, as long as you are not going crazy over the daily recommended every single day consistently, the likelihood of a supplement actually causing you harm, pretty limited, you know. But HGH, no, HGH is not FDA approved. So we're going to talk about hormonal supplements here in just a little bit. But no, HGH and testosterone supplements, well, I guess that's not true. They are FDA approved, but they are also banned supplements. So they are more medical. So HGH and testosterone, so like, you know, steroids or TRT replacement, like testosterone replacement therapy, and HGH therapy are all things that doctors can prescribe, but you need to meet specifically with an endocrinologist. So yes, those things do exist, but they're medical, so they wouldn't fall under the category of supplements. If someone is selling a supplement that claims to boost your HGH levels, that is probably not true. Same thing is true with testosterone. You'll see, I mean, anybody who watches like ESPN for 30 seconds, you find that Nugenics ad that, you know, that they like to show, and it's like, for guys that are getting a little bit older, and it's like, boost your HGH and testosterone levels, you know. Usually that's like a supplement called Tribulus terrestris, which is like this plant that is supposed to, if you look at the chemistry of that plant, it's actually really similar to a molecule of testosterone. Like, just look at the molecules side by side. They're shaped very similarly. And so the theory is like, well, then it's just testosterone. It'll act like testosterone in the body. But a lot of companies have been saying that for a really long time. There is no long-term evidence proof that that is actually true at all. So yeah, HGH, to answer your question directly, is FDA approved, but it is also not a supplement. It is a medicine. So only doctors are going to prescribe that. It's usually for kids who are experiencing like growth problems at young ages and stuff. Sometimes you'll see it in senior populations who are dealing with like bone density and stuff. HGH really is amazing, by the way. Like, it is a really amazing hormone, but it is also very misunderstood. They really should relabel it. They should call it HSGH, human stuff growing hormone. Because a lot of people think that like, it'll make my muscles bigger and my bones denser. And it will. They will actually do both those things, because those are human cells, and human growth hormone boosts the growth of human cells. But it can also sometimes lead to diabetes, because then it can make your pancreas larger and start spitting out too much insulin. It can lead to carpal tunnel syndrome. It's my favorite weird side effect of HGH hormone, which basically it thickens this band because this band here is made of human cells as well. So then you actually start getting nerve pain because now there's less space available. So that's probably my favorite weird side effect. But bone spurs and other things. So it's why, like, with something like that, because it does work, it is very important to make sure that it is only taken under doctor supervision. And I know that there are stuff you can get out there nowadays. Like the big thing in the see, I'm doing all my steroid talk now. The big thing in the weightlifting world now is, I think, SARMs, SARMS, which are these, like, they are also banned supplements, but they are like ingestible hormones that are not testosterone or HGH directly. They are, I think it's a ghrelin receptor for the HGH one because there's a connection between ghrelin and HGH. And then it's a supplement that triggers your body to make more of the HGH and testosterone. But they have similar side effects to those other ones. They have similar side effects to, like, the regular, like, supplementation of these things, which means really they should be taken under, like, doctor supervision. But because they are not FDA approved, people are getting their hands on these things. And basically you buy them with, like, it's kind of like the dark web. I don't know anything about the dark web, but basically, like, people are getting their hands on this stuff by buying it with, like, crypto, so they won't use regular money. And, like, they get them, and then they're buying them by basically, like, signing something on the website that says, like, this is for an experiment, I'm giving it to a lab rat, like, you have to, like, say all this stuff. And then you can get your hands on these chemicals that make your body make more testosterone or human growth hormone. And they're really, really popular right now. I say really popular. Obviously, most people don't know about them, but, like, they're popular in the same crowds that would, get their hands on steroids and stuff. Um, that sounds incredibly unsafe to me, incredibly unproven, and also incredibly expensive. So I would definitely stay away from anything like that. Not that that was your question, but if you hear of anything about, SARMs and stuff like that, or steroids, my advice is always to stay away from those things. We'll talk more about it. I got some slides coming up that'll kind of get into, these banned supplements like anabolic steroids and stuff. But yeah, let's give you guys a few minutes here. We're only gonna take one break today, because we're wrapping up a little bit early. We don't have much to get through today, so let's give you guys 10, and then we'll come back and we'll push through the rest of this. Good. Hey, you little stowaway. What are you doing here? Ugh. Jen, since you were asking, there she is. All right. Joan tells over. You gotta go. She whines when she gets locked in here, so she does not get to hang out during class. Okay. So yeah, talking about like just getting back into like our supplements. We are going to sort of break them down into a couple different uses. We've got stimulants, which are things like pre-workout or caffeine. We've got creatine, which can be very helpful. And then, like I said, in the world of weightlifting, there are a lot of banned supplements. Testosterone is the big one. There are various different variations of that out there, but for the most part, they all kind of have the same effect. Guys, you do want to avoid testosterone supplements. I know that they are honestly not that hard to get a hold of, and they are effective. You'll never hear me say that, steroids don't work. They are very effective at doing what they do, but you got to remember that they are also like hormones, and so they're going to have the hormonal effects that they are designed to have. And one of those things that happens is like your body is trying to maintain homeostasis. So when you amp your body full of testosterone, your body will actually stop producing its own testosterone in response to that. And what that causes is after you stop taking that supplement, very low testosterone levels. And so then your body will actually start to boost estrogen levels in response. This is one of the reasons why some of the side effects of taking testosterone and things like that can actually be more gynoid traits where you'll see like gynomastia and things like that, breast growth, hair loss, acne, all kinds of different things that are sort of associated with boosting the wrong hormones inside the body. And then the same thing is true of women who take testosterone can obviously have like muscle building benefits and things like that, but then they're going to experience more like android traits. So these are things we are going to avoid. So when it comes to responsible use recommendations, no matter what supplement you are taking, do not use or you're not going to use or recommend dietary supplements without first reading the label and understanding them. Do not exceed the recommended daily dose. Definitely look for whether or not that supplement has a disclosed list. What I mean by that is like if you look at a supplement label proprietary blend. So one thing that like supplements can get away with is you will look at their label. So here's a mushroom supplement. Oh, it's right there at the top. And you will see it will say proprietary botanical energy blend, right? Now this version is actually not that big a deal. It's all listed right here, which is kind of nice. I think that's a really good version. But you will sometimes see things like this that just say proprietary blend. And then it'll kind of generally say what's in there, but it won't say how much of what is in there. Again, that is something supplements get away with because they are saying, look, it's been tested to be safe, but we're not going to tell people what's in this because these are the things that give us the results. And the FDA goes, well, results aren't what we're looking at. We're just looking at whether or not it's safe. So they can let them say it is a proprietary blend, which basically means that like it is a sneaky blend that only they are the ones that get to know. Does it work? Again, that's up for debate. They're gonna say it does. So we don't do that. We don't recommend any supplements for any clients under 18 years or younger. They shouldn't be stacked is another thing. Different dietary supplements. You'll hear the term stacking in our industry a lot, which basically means you're going to take a lot of supplements all at once to do certain things by combining them all together. remember, guys, there's no such thing as a side effect. There are just effects. They call them side effects because they are the things that happen that we weren't necessarily aiming for, but they are still just what happens when you take a supplement. So, the idea that a side effect of this or that is hair loss, or the side effect of this or that is acne, it's like those aren't side effects. That's just what happens when you boost certain levels of hormones inside your body. It also should not be taken with medication. If you are on a specific medication that is prescribed by a doctor, you certainly should not be taking a supplement to sort of boost or counteract any of the side effects associated with that. That is something that you should be talking to your doctor about if you are worried about those effects or side effects. And we never, ever, ever use supplements to treat medical conditions, right? So we should always, always, always talk to our doctor before ever taking any type of supplement. So looking at supplement labels, you will oftentimes see two different lists. You are going to see active ingredients, which are ingredients associated with the intended goal of the supplement. And we're going to find other ingredients, or inactive, which are ingredients not associated with the intended goal of the supplement, that may be to increase absorption, taste, or oh my gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? Absorption, taste, or effectiveness. Good Lord. So there are certain ingredients that you'll find that maybe slow the release of a supplement down in your digestive system. That's not necessarily related to the supplement itself, but similar to certain pills. Hear about it all the time when you hear like NyQuil, and stuff like that. They'll say it's like a time released capsule. That's sort of what they're talking about there. So we look at a dietary label, and you'll see here's your classic sort of an acid version, but see a sort of classic proteins, fats, saturated fats being listed separately there, cholesterol, carbohydrates, sodium, fiber, and added sugars. So you're going to find all of your normal nutrition label stuff. These are our recommended amounts. So you'll see the recommended amount of protein is 50 grams per day. That sounds a little weird because you're like, isn't everybody going to need a slightly different amount of protein every day? Yes, they are. But this is recommended for a classic sort of 2,000 calorie diet. 50 times 4, because there's 4 calories in every gram of protein. That comes out to 200 calories divided by 2,000. And there we go. It's 10%, which is that bottom recommendation, minimum amount of protein. Same thing is true of fat, and then saturated fat, you'll notice, is 20. There's 9 calories in every gram of fat, so 20 times 9 gives us 180 calories divided by 2,000. And that's 0.09%. They could get away with a little bit more, but basically you want less than 10% of your diet to be saturated every day. So that's where these numbers are kind of coming from. These are the minimums or maximums. You have 2,300 milligrams of sodium and 28 grams of fiber. That is basing that recommendation there in the sort of the middle between the two. So there's your regular old nutrition label, and you will sometimes see that in certain supplements. For instance, protein is a really good example of that, right? So if we look at a protein supplement here, so this is 1 scoop of whey protein, and it has about 100 calories, which is kind of funny because typically it'll actually, this is so weird that this is the example in your book, guys. 90% of freaking protein supplements out there are not a 25-gram scoop. They're a 30-gram scoop. So this will usually say 120. This will still be usually around 4 or 5. And then usually the amount of protein you're going to find is about 24. So I don't know which freaking protein supplement this is. But I was like, God dang it. Remember when this book came out, I was like, that's not even the most common one that we find. Most whey protein has like all the exact same like stats. Like if I looked up, you know, whey protein, we look at the nutrition facts panel of so many of these, naked whey or GNC or whatever, you'll find 120 calories. Good Lord, that is super pixelated. Oh my gosh, still pixelated. All right, well, this is not going well. Give me an unpixelated image. Bah! Yeah, 120 calories and 24 grams of protein. Anyway, just take my word for it. So they're almost all exactly the same because again, like the way you make whey is pretty much identical, you know. It is the byproduct of making cheese. But you'll also see like here's a little amino acid profile. They don't have to include this. They will often include this though. And it's basically, you know, here's what you want to do when you see an amino acid profile, guys. Count to 20. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So they're actually not including all of them. So this is an 18 source amino acid. So they actually might be missing 2 of the amino acids because there are 20 amino acids that we want to normally get. Which makes me wonder, I've never actually paid too much attention to this before. Is this not a whey protein? It's not. Holy crap. That explains it. I have never actually paid attention to that before. I've done this PowerPoint a few times now. This is not a whey protein powder. This is a little bit of pea protein, hemp protein, and goji berry. So this is a great thing to talk about. So this is not a whey protein powder, which means it is missing a little bit of these amino acids. So I was going to say those amino acid profiles are going to be a little bit more important to pay attention to if you are using like a vegan or vegetarian whey. Which there's no such thing as vegan whey. Whey is a milk product, but you'll hear people say that sometimes. But a vegan protein. This is a really good example. So here's what you want to do if you ever take a vegan protein, guys. Make sure that it is not just one type of protein. So this is pea protein. Pea is a legume. Hemp, which is a grain, and berry, which is a fruit, right? Or vegetable, right? So those are 3 very different sources. So that is what they are using to fill in that amino acid profile. Because if you remember what we were talking about with nutrition, plant sources are not complete proteins, typically. They are missing 1 or more amino acids. So in this case, we are seeing most of our amino acids, but it's got leucine and lysine. Those are the big ones. It's got valine. It's got isoleucine. Yeah, it does. So this is this is actually a pretty good protein powder. It's missing 2, which I can't quite find here. There's glutamic acid, so maybe it's missing regular old glutamine. Not a big deal though. So this is a protein powder. That's a vegetarian protein powder. But you can see like, you know, they've got a proprietary blend of like these things, but at least they listed those out. It doesn't say how much of each of those things though. So that is a little, you know, not as trustworthy. But they do have a pretty good job of like listing out how many of these amino acids are going to be over here. So that's not a terrible label. You look over here, there's a calcium supplement, and you can see really it's just saying like, look, here's your calories. It's got vitamin D and it's got calcium, you know. There's some other ingredients in there which are not really that important. The soybean oil, gelatin, glycerin, soy, lecithin, and caramel color. That's just to make the pill look a certain way, to look a little bit more appealing. Now, there are some differences that you'll see in the US compared to the UK. You know, they're obviously going to use slightly different standards. They're also going to break things down a little bit more metrically than we are. But for the most part, you know, it's all going to have the same information. So when it comes to dietary supplements and we talk about like the manufacturing process, there's a few different organizations out there that are third parties that you can sort of look for that are a little bit more trusted, right? All of them are going to follow FDA law. You don't have to worry about that. But there's the National Sanitation Foundation. There's the World Anti-Doping Association. Now, this is not a US thing. WADA is basically, you know, they work with other sporting agencies to keep certain banned supplements out of certain sports. So that is not about health. That is specifically about sports and things like that. So WADA, for instance, it's anti-doping. They're basically going to make sure that you're not taking any like hormonal stuff in particular. United States Pharmacopedia, Pharmacopoeia. That one is the USP is good. They've come under some scrutiny in the last few years, but they are a third-party verifier, basically saying that supplements do what they're supposed to do. But they also get a lot of money. They're not a government organization, but they kind of market themselves as one. And then there's the Banned Substance Control Group. That's the one that works with like the NFL and the NBA and the MLB, making sure that like certain banned supplements are not found in like sports and stuff like that. So you can see here, we are testing for quality. All of them are testing to see, if these supplements are quality or safe, or if they're saying what's in them is supposed to be in them. But then, they are also like certain organizations are testing for banned supplements because obviously in the world of sports, we want to make sure everybody has a level playing field. Okay, so that's our general rules of supplements there. Now, obviously, there are going to also be two major categories of supplementation or reasons people are taking supplements, right? We have health supplements, which are designed to improve a component of well-being. These are things like vitamin supplements, right? Vitamin supplements, mineral supplements, fiber, etc. And then we're going to have performance supplements. Right, these are usually targeted to enhance specific athletic performance. So supplements designed to enhance performance or body composition, sometimes referred to as ergogenic aids. So that is going to be things like protein powder, creatine, caffeine, etc. Good Lord, I can't spell today. So in terms of multivitamins, we've got our fat-soluble vitamins. I talked about these the other day, but those are going to be vitamins A, D, E, and K. You do want to have that memorized, so you get your ADEC. And then we got our water-soluble. So then vitamin A, you're going to see, things like beta-carotene is a really good example. It is the type of food that you're going to find with like bright orange or yellow colors. That's going to be a really good source of beta-carotene. Deficiency is pretty rare. We have a good source of that here in the US. But there are certain side effects with having too much of it. It can actually make your skin a little scalier, and it can actually turn you orange. Too much beta carotene. Take a look. If you're eating sweet potatoes every day, it can actually turn your skin slightly orange. That is one of the things that will happen with eating way too much of this. And you will also see that you'll have a little bit of increased like keratin production, which makes your skin a little drier and scalier compared with like having more collagen in your skin. So that's kind of interesting, right? Vitamin D, best place to get it is sunlight, actually. That is our favorite place to absorb vitamin D. That's going to help with the absorption of calcium in your body and the creation of new bone tissue. It is possible to become deficient if you're from where I am from, the northwest of Oregon, where it rains 24 hours a day. Vitamin D deficiency is actually pretty common. So basically you want to make sure that you get out and get your sunlight in. That's going to be really important. Osteoporosis, lactose intolerance, weirdly enough, IBS, rickets, all of those are deficiencies in vitamin D. Vitamin E is going to act as an antioxidant. Antioxidants are amazing. They are basically little molecules that have extra electrons that they are willing to donate away so they can protect you against things like cancer. Deficiency is pretty rare, but there are side effects to having too much of it. It can actually reduce your vitamin K in your body and result in sort of thin blood. It's a weird term, but basically prevents your red blood cells from acting properly. Vitamin K, really important for bone health. It actually interacts with vitamin D. That's the thing about vitamins, guys. They're all sort of like intertwined together and they all sort of operate similarly. Deficiency in the US is pretty rare because we oftentimes supplement our grains and cereals with vitamin K. But side effect of having too much of it, it can actually cause blood clots, weirdly enough, because vitamin K is important in the clotting process. Too little of it, again, you can end up with thin blood. Too much of it, you can end up with blood clots. Are these things to worry about? Definitely not. But they are things that can happen, so we got to talk about them. Vitamin C and B complex. These are all your water-soluble vitamins. So B1, 2, 3, skipping 4, 5, 6, 7, skipping 8, 9, and skipping straight to 12, as well as vitamin C. These are all the water-soluble ones. So vitamin C is important for the synthesis of collagen. That's why you hear it's so good for your skin. It's also really important for protein metabolism. So you'll find sometimes people will actually be vitamin C deficient. This happens, I think of this every time I hear somebody go on the freaking carnivore diet. Every time somebody tells me, they're like, oh, I'm doing carnivore and I've been losing weight really well. And I'm like, they're like, I'm getting lots of protein. I'm like, you know what's really ironic about being on a carnivore diet? You can actually become protein deficient. That sounds impossible when the only thing that you're eating is meat, but meat does not have squat for vitamin C in it. And vitamin C is actually what allows you to use amino acids for protein synthesis. So weirdly enough, you will get worse at processing and using protein. You can find some vitamin C in like liver and organ meats and stuff, but for the most part, like it is really rare to find. So there's a weird side effect for you. And I will not go on any more carnivore rants. It's the one, I get on these, I don't know, who knows what the rant is going to be in 2 years, like when somebody's like, I'm on the honey diet, like, I'm like, oh my God. It all comes in waves. So there's really no major side effect in high doses other than, like I said, canker sore is kind of a weird one. Deficiency is pretty rare, here in the US, but if you have it, you can end up with scurvy, which is really scary looking, actually. Basically, you end up losing, like, your body sort of cannibalizes, but that's what happens when you are not processing protein correctly. Sorry to show you that. Moving on with life. Then we got the rest of our B complex. Right now we're looking at B1, 2, 3, and 5. 5 is really important for red blood cell production. Niacin, B3. That's a huge one for your macro metabolism. Breaking down glucose, we need B3 to do that. Riboflavin, same thing. B1, thiamine, same thing there. So vitamins, your B complex are basically acting like coenzymes, right? Their job is to sort of be similar to an enzyme. And basically, when you look at the Krebs cycle and you see all of those little like enzyme reactions, B vitamins make that more efficient. So if you're trying to like spit out more energy, B vitamins can be very helpful for that. But again, that's what we're talking about. It's like, well, do B vitamins give you energy? No. They unlock your ability to utilize the energy from the macronutrients that you've already consumed. So they don't give you energy on their own unless you have a healthy diet overall, which is why when people are like eating like crap and then they take a B supplement, they're like, it helps with my energy. And I'm like, ugh, just get some potatoes in your life, like get some regular healthy carbohydrates. Now, looking at our minerals, we have what are sometimes called macro minerals, but these are major minerals. You need more than 100 milligrams per day. And we have micro minerals or trace minerals, which you need in less than 100 milligrams per day. So calcium for bone health, magnesium does act as an electrolyte. It also interacts with almost all of your other minerals, actually. Sodium, potassium, and chloride, those are the actual electrolytes we generally talk about. You cannot make electricity in your body without those electrolytes. You gots to have them. Toxicity for those is pretty rare. We're finding that like a lot of people have talked about like how bad sodium in super high levels are, but we're finding more and more every day that that is proving less true. Again, all of this stuff is up into the air until we've done sufficient research. But for now, again, if you have a doctor recommendation that says like reduce your sodium intake, you should always listen to that. I was just having this conversation with my mom the other day because like she has heart problems, and so her doctor's got her on a low sodium diet, but she also will sometimes get like really severe cramping. So like I was like, maybe talk to your doctor about like what he means when he says low sodium, and so now she's like, working on a hydration schedule and taking like electrolyte powders, which have sodium in them, weirdly enough. But and she's finding that that's like really helping her. So we're finding like the whole heart disease with like high sodium thing may actually in the next few years be proven to be untrue, which is kind of crazy. But as of now, that is not true. So we are still going to follow the old recommendations. Iron, weirdly enough, is a trace mineral, even though we talk about how freaking important it is all the time. But red blood cell production deficiency is common. It says in men and women. I will say this, and that's not entirely true. If you take a men's multivitamin, you'll notice it really rarely ever contains iron. If you look at a women's multivitamin, you will almost always find that it does contain iron. Men don't experience like a menstruation cycle, and so because of that, we're not losing a massive amount of iron on a consistent basis. So anemia is going to be less common in men than it is in women. And that's why like iron supplements are usually actually fairly helpful for women. Guys, you want to make sure that you don't have iron if you are taking a multivitamin, generally in that supplement. And the reason why is because if you do get too much iron in your blood, and that is true of both men and women, you can end up with what's called hemochromatosis, I think. And it's where iron sort of accumulates in your liver. And it can actually prevent you, has similar side effects to being anemic, actually. You get nauseous, you feel low energy, all kinds of problems. Iodine is a really interesting one. Iodine is really important for the production of thyroid hormone. In excess, though, it can actually cause hypothyroidism, meaning that your metabolism can actually slow down. So that's kind of an interesting one. Zinc, really important. Man, zinc is one of my favorite freaking supplements. Only because it is what your immune cells use to puncture viruses. So you know how like zinc is found in like cold medicines and things like that. You'll find it in like lozenges and things like that for when you have a cold. It'll say it like contains zinc, right? Here's why. So when a white blood cell finds like a virus floating around your blood, it'll like shimmy its way over, and then it will literally stab the virus and mark it for destruction. And the little arm prong that it uses to do that is made of zinc. So the idea is that you are giving your white blood cells the tools they need to better fight viruses. Which, if you're like me, what you just pictured in your head is like the Terminator 2 villain. Like the guy that can make, you remember that scene where he like makes his arm like a giant metal blade and he's like, God, like that's literally what your white blood cells do, which is why zinc is my favorite mineral. Because I always think of the Terminator 2 guy. Because that is kind of how it works. Yay, biology. All right, chromium, this one's pretty rare to have deficiency or toxicity. We don't get too much chromium in our diet, but literally chrome, yeah, that is actually an essential mineral. It's also part of your metabolism. So then we have got omega-3s. So omega-3s are going to come in a couple different varieties. These are something that we tend to not get in our diet enough because they are typically found in fish, and fish is just not as popular here in the US as it is in some of the other countries. This is one of the reasons why a Mediterranean diet is considered so healthy. It's got a lot of fish in it, and then like a lot of fruits and vegetables. But the 3 types of omega-3 fatty acids you're going to find are EPA, DHA, and ALA. Now, ALA is pretty effective. It's not bad. You're going to find that in like chia seeds, walnuts, flax seeds. You can take chia seed or flaxseed oil as a supplement, and it may boost those levels. But you need these omega-3 fatty acids to make the cell membranes of all of your cells. You're going to find really low levels in pretty much anything that has fat, but they are found in very high levels in particularly very fatty fish. So if you don't like those things, you can take a fish oil supplement or a flaxseed supplement, or you can find them, if you have like chicken eggs and they feed those chickens like a lot of chia or flax, that will usually boost the EPA, DHA, and ALA levels in those. And there's a lot of like positive benefits associated with getting enough omega-3s. Reduced inflammation, reduced triglycerides, increased HDL, which is good cholesterol, right? Brain health. My favorite example of that, by the way, is like literally walnuts are very good for your brain because of the omega-3s in them, and they kind of look like little brains, So that's a good way to remember that. But whether or not it works in supplementation is, again, up for debate, right? We know that like increasing those things in your diet can have that positive benefit. Taking them as a supplement could, but is it as effective as getting it in your diet? Probably not. So that's one thing that I always talk about. So then we got ergogenic aids, aka performance supplements. So ergo means work. So ergogenic aids are basically like allowing you to do more work. This is where we run into things like amino acid supplements, right? BCAAs. So for the record, when it comes to BCAAs, that means a branched chain amino acid. Okay. That is going to be valine, leucine, and isoleucine. Okay, those are your 3 BCAAs. Okay, they are essential, which means your body cannot make them. And they are probably the 3 most essential for protein synthesis. So the theory is, oh, well, I'm going to take some more BCAAs and that's going to make me make more muscle, right? Again, this is really similar to what I was talking about on Tuesday, but it's like if there was a construction site and they were building a house and I've got 10 guys working on that job, if I show up with more lumber, is that house going to go up any faster? Probably not, because those guys are theoretically working as fast as they can already. Just because I'm boosting the levels of something doesn't mean that I'm actually like increasing production, right? That's kind of how your body works. Your body can only make so much protein at any given time. And while it is important to make sure you do have these things, it does not guarantee that you are going to speed up the process. So you can take BCAA supplements. Here's the thing. Vitamin supplements, all this stuff, BCAAs, it's not likely to hurt you. It's likely to hurt your wallet. But if you've got a wallet that can handle it, it's really probably not going to hurt you guys. I don't necessarily have anything against taking these supplements in terms of like risk. I mean, we talked about steroids earlier. Stay away from those. Black and white, very simple. Don't take steroids. Don't take anything hormonal. Done. But in terms of like all these other things, even if they haven't necessarily been proven to work, they also haven't been proven to hurt you. So maybe they would be effective. So if you want to take them and you've got the money to do it, and you've got the time and you've got the energy, hey, that's fine. Now, the ones that have been proven to work, we're going to sort of get into here. We did talk about protein earlier. Protein has been proven almost across the board, mostly because, well, it's just a macronutrient. And it is sometimes hard to get enough protein in your diet. Now, the next one that is pretty much proven to be effective is creatine, at least in people who are responders to it. You get about a 20, he said 20% in the first, 20 to 30 in the first video. I haven't heard of creatine non-responders being that high. For me, it's always, I've always heard that be around 10% of the population. So like 1 in 10 people don't respond to creatine. It just doesn't have much of an absorptive effect in their body. Usually those people can get away if they take like a creatine pill, sometimes it can help. But the theory behind non-responders isn't that like creatine doesn't work in their body. That would be crazy. What it is like their stomach acid is probably intense enough that it kind of unfolds the proteins found in creatine and keeps it from getting to their bloodstream. So when I say you're a creatine non-responder, I don't mean that like creatine doesn't work in your body because you make creatine naturally. What I mean is that like your stomach acid's probably intense enough that it just keeps it from working. So that's what they mean when they say, and like I said, I think that's only like 10% of the population. I don't know what he was quoting earlier when he said 20 to 30, but so creatine is really cool. It's basically you can see here after we break an ATP molecule down into ADP, so we are missing that third phosphate. Creatine has an extra phosphate, so it is willing to donate it away. Then you're left with a little bit of extra creatine, which your body will have to flush out of your system using water. And then you've got an ATP molecule again. So that's great. That's going to be really good for, lifting very, very heavy because this process is super explosive and very, very fast. We talked about it the other day, the ATP-PC system, very intense, high intensity training. But like I said, is it good? Does it have any side effects? Not really. The only side effect that you're going to find with creatine is water retention because you do got to get rid of that extra creatine molecule all by itself by flushing it out. So it does cause a little bit of water retention, but for the most part, it is really effective at doing what it does. We've also got caffeine. Caffeine has been shown to be pretty much effective. There are some side effects if you have too much of it. It can increase your resting heart rate, cause dehydration, restlessness, and insomnia if it's taken too low, anxiety, and caffeine is a flowing agent, meaning that it will cause your digestive system to make you want to go pee. Basically, it makes you want to go to the bathroom in general. So too much of it can cause GI problems. So be careful with that. But it has been shown to not only boost your overall performance by giving you like a big boost of energy, particularly in long duration exercise, by the way, so not short duration. But it also does burn like fat. You think about like if you get a lot of extra energy and you're doing this all day, you're burning little bits of extra calories, and that's one of the nice things of caffeine. So a lot of times when you hear about like the supplement called a thermogenic fat burner, really all it is a bunch of a bunch of caffeine, guarine, and B vitamins, and just everything that they can throw in there to basically like boost your energy. So you'll be like very bouncy and sure enough burn extra calories every day. The idea that your metabolism actually runs at a faster rate may be possible as well, but the amount that it's actually increasing is marginals at best. So when you hear of like a thermogenic fat burner, it's not that it's actually like burning fat miraculously or anything. It's just making you a little more bouncy. And when you're a little more bouncy, you burn extra calories all day long. Sounds crazy, but it actually really does add up. When it comes down to ergogenic aids, one of the things we have to talk about is the legal status of it. For the most part, most of them are entirely legal in normal populations. But in the world of like sporting events and things like that, you look at like the NCAA, or I talked about WADA earlier, right? They're going to make sure that they are safe, and then they are basically going to put a cap on how much of it you can take. In sports and stuff, believe it or not, like even in like the NBA or the MLB, we always hear about people getting caught taking like steroids and stuff like that. But you can actually get caught taking too much caffeine. It's rare, because I don't think that's what they're looking for most of the time, but there are actually limits on how much caffeine you are allowed to have in your bloodstream at any given time as an Olympic athlete or MLB player even. So, but the banned stuff is the anabolic steroids, right? And you can see here, the reason that they are banned is because they have very intense side effects, right? Decreased sperm count for men, menstruation irregularities for women, decreased sex drive for pretty much everybody. Increased body hair in women, decreased body hair in men. Well, sorry, increased head hair in men. Really interesting stuff here. Prostate enlargement, which can cause cancer. Definitely stuff we are trying to avoid. So, long story, very long. You know, spent 2 hours on it, but when it comes to like how we can use supplements in our scope of practice, you know, we do know that supplements have certain physiologic effects or can, but we want to make sure that like we are paying attention to, you know, again, the purpose of them, and we want to make sure that we are not stepping outside of what we are allowed to do. So we are allowed to provide general nutritional advice, and I do love to educate my clients on supplements, similar to how I've been talking to you guys about it today, right? These are the things that these supplements can do, and they're generally the things that they are used for. Do I believe that everyone should take them? You know, I'm much more a big fan of getting everything from whole food. Personally, right now, I am not on a single supplement, even whey protein. I'm not on caffeine. I mean, I guess I take coffee every day, but you know, like right now, none. But like in times in the past, if I'm training for something, I might take creatine. I might take whey protein to make sure that I'm really nailing my macros every day. Sometimes I'll take multivitamins here and there, you know, pretty rarely, but sometimes. But for the most part, like we are always, if we are not prescribing supplements to, you know, fix any medical conditions, right? We are, you know, when it comes to medical stuff, we are going to refer to a doctor, a qualified health professional. General advice is fine. But again, we don't prescribe meal plans, nutritional therapy, or supplements for the purpose of fixing any problems. As long as you stay within those general guidelines, guys, you're going to be in a really good spot. And that's about it today, guys. I'm glad we got to circle back and wrap this up because I didn't get to talk about it the other day. So